Hmm. Well, we've all seen webcam videos like that on places like YouTube and a gazillion other social networking sites where people are kind of just talking into the camera with a large set of microphone headphones on and a sort of messy bookshelf in the background covered in junk. Well, I don't own a messy bookshelf in the back covered in junk or an oversized pair of headphones. And people kind of tend to do this when they're kind of, it's alright if they're just kind of doing stuff for themselves or hobby type stuff, but people are doing this when it comes to promoting themselves and their business. It's a bit like having a person come round, sort of like a boss come round or something to your house when you're about to get a sort of a raise or a promotion, and you don't bother to tidy your house up. What's your boss going to think when he's about to give you the keys to running his most prized department? Well, people do this all the time. So the problem is that people can't always afford something like this when it comes to promoting their business. This being the Toshiba Gigashot HD camera, which they should be using something like this if they're serious about their business. But even this has its limitations, which I'll get back to in a minute. So, from what I've just said, you could probably read between the lines and say that if you're serious about your business or about yourself, you wouldn't shoot on a webcam like I'm doing now, per se, at all. Well, obviously not everybody can afford this, can't invest in this straight away, even though it is a presentational business expense. It is what people see and how they kind of make their first impressions. So it's a bit like buying that suit for that job interview that you go to. When you go to a job interview, you buy a new suit. Consider this your new suit to help you get the job. But if you're not able to afford that yet, then this is what I use. Now, this is the Logitech 9000, and yes, it's a webcam. There's a cable attached to it. It has a microphone on one end, and it has a rather good lens on the other. Now, because of the images that this actually gives you, I actually quite like using this, and the other reason I quite like using this is because of it has a manual exposure. So obviously, even if you can afford one of these, the drawback is clear. So why wouldn't we want something like this? 1280 by 720 of beautiful high definition video in favour of this, which we're now on, which is the Logitech 9000. You can see the difference between the Logitech 9000, which is a higher end webcam, as opposed to the integrated webcam I had in the computer. Well, it's an obvious one. I wouldn't be able to do this if I was to stick with this. You wouldn't be seeing me as you're seeing me now if I was to stick with this. But what does that mean? Well, here we are in my studio, and I wouldn't be able to give you this kind of studio look if I was to rely on this. Whilst this gives you very nice pictures and is used most of the time, there's a key element it will not help you with, and that is because the main people who make the video cameras at the moment, your your Sonys and your Panasonics, your JVCs and your Toshibas believe that you and me, the public, want everything from focus to exposure to be an automatic override, and if you want manual, you have to go retro and buy an old DV camera, or you have to pile a few more £1,000 onto the price of this so that you can have this kind of effect in the background. The effect being that old illusion of white wall being overexposed so that you get a kind of vacuumous look, because obviously with the automatic exposure, this is how the automatic exposure will read the picture you were just looking at with the bright background, because it tries to expose for the brightest point. And sometimes in lighting and video, and in this case, you need your brightest point to be overexposed so that you can get certain effects. So what do? If you're wanting to shoot outside and you're using one of these, and you're coming across a situation where you need to split the difference between shade and the sunlight, or you want that background overexposed, what are you going to do? Because this will give you great footage, but it ain't going to give you an overexposed background. It's not going to manipulate that picture for you. And as for the Logitech 9000, it's got a wire on it, so you're not going to be able to take it outside, are you? You're kind of stuffed, or are you? So, what do we do if we want to shoot outside like this and we want to play around with the exposure? If the sun comes out, this thing is only going to expose for the sun, or it's going to expose for the shade. So, what do I do? Well, and why have I kept hold of my Logitech 9000 with that cable attached to the computer?